One of the BZA to order.
This conference is no longer being recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. I had an itchy trigger finger.
Okay. So I'll call the meeting to order, the virtual regular meeting of January the 7th, 2021. Call the roll, please.
Kevin Skaggs, Jim Newman.
Wes Summers, I think I hear everybody but Lynn Stembridge, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Everybody got a copy of the minutes for the regular meeting for December the 10th, 2020?
Yes.
Anybody have any corrections or changes? If I don't hear any, we'll consider them approved.
So moved.
Yes, sir.
Hearing none, they're approved. Item 4 is the confirmation of the agenda. No one has a problem with it, we'll consider it approved.
Yes. Go ahead.
I have no problem. I have nothing to add.
We will move on to item 5.
So, hey, say, Wes,
Yes.
I'd like to mention one thing. I'm going to have to recuse myself from this discussion. I live on Green Forest Drive and may be impacted by this development. So I think it's the right thing for me to do is to recuse myself and sign off.
Okay. Agree with you. I think that's probably right. If you don't leave the meeting, you put yourself on mute and just not comment.
All right. I'm going to leave. I'm signing off.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Item 5 is ZB20008. It's a request by Ivy Development for lot widths less than the minimum permitted in the R7 small lot single family residential zoning district by table 3.3 dimension standards of Article 3 zoning districts of the North Augusta Development Code. The request affects a proposed townhome and single family detached development on plus or minus 89.64 acres located at the terminus of Nepal, Green Forest, and Bobby Drive. Tax number 006-10-09-002 and 006-11-03-164. Having read that, I will now open the public hearing for the purpose of receiving public comments on the application. I have a couple of things I want to bring up before we actually get started. We have a grand total tonight of 4 people who have requested to speak. That's a little unusual at a virtual meeting, but we are going to allow 4 people to call in and speak. We've received an additional 5 telephone messages. We've received 25 emails against and 1 email for. I'm not going to read all of these emails, but what we will do is read 3 or 4 of them, but we will read all of the names of everybody that sent us an email, and the emails and all will all be part of tonight's proceedings and will be on record in their entirety as we have them. We also have a petition from the local residents that has 210 names that are against them, that are against the variance tonight, our proposal, and we will also include those names and lists in the minutes. Any questions from any of the board members on what I'm doing?
No, sir.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing, but first we will hear from our planning director, Ms. Hodges, see if she has anything she wants to tell us about the application.
I don't have a whole lot to add that's not already
Before you do that, will you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All
We
right.
won't swear you.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that the hearing tonight is about lot width only. This is not a request to rezone the property. The property is already zoned to R7. And I outline in the staff report that there is a conflict in the code about lot area versus width versus frontage and setbacks. So that's what we're here talking about tonight. I do have a list that I've made of those who have requested to speak, the phone messages, and as well as a list of the 22 emails that we got that you were talking about, and I'll be more than happy to read out all of those names. And as you stated, it's at your discretion which ones I read in full, if any, although we do have 4 representatives of the surrounding neighborhoods here to speak.
Okay. All right. Any questions from any of the BZA members for Ms. Hodges?
I do, Wes. I got a quick question. I don't know if this was the proper time or whatever, but just kind of reading through the notes and so forth. I know we're talking about small lots, and the way their plan is drawn out, they do have some townhomes, and it looks like some house separate. But if we're rezoning all the lots to possibly 16, or just the townhome?
So this wouldn't be rezoning. This would be to allow the less than the 40-foot width that's allowed under the R7 zoning. And as I laid out in the staff report, it's at the board's discretion how they want to review what lots get what exception.
Right. And I failed to.
But are we?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'm still having a hard time understanding because, we can on how many can be 16 foot, but if we zone this whole 89 acres, they can put them anywhere.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that just a little deeper in just a few minutes.
Okay.
I promise you.
All right. Thank you.
I have a question about it also. The thing I wanted, I'm sorry, Libby, I didn't say this. You said it, and I want to reiterate it. This has got nothing to do with whether or not the project goes forward or not goes forward. Everybody on board needs to understand that the project can be built as it is today, as long as they adhere to all the rules and regulations that are in the development code. And what the developer's asking for is a variance on some width of some lot lines, and that's the only thing he's asking from us tonight. That is correct, right, Libby?
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure everybody understands that. Any other questions of Libby from the board?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kathy.
It says that we're dealing with this property located at the terminus of Nepal, Green Forest, and Bobby Drive. What about Dove Avenue?
That was added on the project summary. That is on the project summary.
Okay. All right.
But Dove is cul-de-sac, so it's a little bit different. That's already kind of been cut off by the other previous development. So,
any other questions? Is there anybody from the developer that would like to speak?
Yep. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jason Winter with Ivy Development, and Mark Ivy is also on the video.
All right. Are you going to speak now, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
So, as y'all's mentioned, all this request is tonight is for a reduction in lot widths, and it is for townhomes only. The remaining single-family detached lots, we plan on meeting the minimum 40-foot lot width. A 40-foot lot width for a townhome is very wide in our market. And so we'd like to have some flexibility in that. And so what we've asked for is to go down to a minimum of 16 feet. Now, not saying that all of our townhomes will be 16 feet. We've got a variety of townhome floor plans that we use, probably 16 up to the mid 30-foot wide size. So there'll be a mixture of those. And so what we do in all of our neighborhoods when we develop is we try to have various lot sizes, including townhomes. And when we include townhomes in our neighborhoods, we set up their own sub-association. And so they'll pay monthly fees in addition to the entire neighborhood fee. They'll pay a monthly fee of, I don't know, it might be $100 to $150 a month, which will include roof replacement, pressure washing the exteriors, all the landscape maintenance weekly, pest control. So there's an oversight of those townhomes, so they don't become like probably some just pure townhome developments in the past have become. So the entire neighborhood looks after these. And so we'd hired a land planner out of Bluffton, Whitmer Jones Kiefer, to work on this land plan to come up with this mix of uses with these, with the pocket parks mixed in, alley loaded townhomes. So, you won't have just garage after garage after garage going down the street. You'll see the front doors and the front facades of those townhomes. The other issue on this is one of the main reasons we're asking for lot reduction width in those townhomes too is there's a lot of challenges on this property. It's a great location, but probably about a third of this entire property is in wetlands. We've had our wetlands consultant come up and delineate that earlier this year, or earlier in the summer, late fall. And there's some steep topography. So, we're somewhat limited in the areas we can develop in. And Mr. Chairman, if Mark Ivy wants to add anything, I know he's on the video.
Well, he's welcome to if he'd like to. I need to swear him in.
Opportunity to come before you. So if I need to raise my right hand, I'll be glad to do that.
Yes, sir. Please, if you would. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And state your name, please.
Mark Ivy. I'm a co-owner with my brother Matt of Ivy Residential, Ivy Development, and this is a project that we're excited about. We believe it's a great location. We understand the concerns of the neighbors, and we think we've addressed a lot of those with our layouts. And we're just asking now that the minimum lot width for those townhomes be reduced, not on all of them, but just on a few of them, to allow some variety of facades in that neighborhood. So we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have or that the other listeners have.
I've got a question right off the top of my head. Is how many townhomes are you proposing now?
Jason, do you remember?
On the concept plan that we've turned in, there's about, I think there's 72 townhomes shown.
And you have any idea, an approximate idea of how many of those you would want to reduce I'm assuming you want to reduce all the lot sizes on those down to something, but do you know how many you're talking about around the 16 to 20 foot lot?
Probably right now, probably about half of them to go to that 16 to 20 foot range.
Okay. 30 to 35. Okay.
And how many units are you looking at all together?
Right now, it's about somewhere 160 to 170 is what's shown on that concept. Again, the next step would be go to engineering and really dial down on what we can do. But that's approximately what we're looking at.
So a little less than half would be townhomes.
Yes, ma'am.
Tim, any more questions?
No, sir, not at this time.
I'm having trouble. I had a lot of trouble with the picture that we got, but I'm having trouble with this. Show me exactly where the townhomes are supposed to be on this layout. If somebody can.
If you have the color
Yeah, I got
concept
it.
plan, okay, they're the blocks that are the kind of maybe the purple or lavender color.
Okay.
And so those blocks would contain 3 to 4 townhome units in each one of those blocks.
Okay. All right.
Now, you made comment that you were trying to. Go
But
ahead,
it's
Debbie.
my understanding it's this in these areas.
Right. Okay.
Where are you showing that, Libby?
Can you see the yellow highlight?
I can.
Yeah, it would be about.
I've got the colored one up now.
Okay.
So the yellow ones would be townhomes. Yellow circles within that.
Inside that area, and it's a very sloppy circle, so I apologize for that.
Now, you made comment earlier that you said you're accessing the alleys. Are all the garages going to be on the alley, or are you going to have some facing the main streets?
There will be a few that will face the main street just based on grade. I don't think that we can get an alley behind it based on this drawing, but that would be only on this drawing. That would be only for 12 that would not have an alley loaded garage.
Okay, and then the 2 bedrooms that you're getting into 16 foot, will they have a garage front or back, or are they just going to park in front on the street?
They would have a
They'll have a garage.
parking pad in the back or potentially a garage.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Has a traffic study been done or looked at traffic flow?
We haven't yet. Specifically, we know we have to do that. We have generally looked at the traffic and know that we have to make probably at least 2 connections out, but no specific traffic engineering plan has been done yet.
Do you know where those 2 egresses are going to be?
Right now, we're planning on Green Forest and down at Nepal. There is a stub out from Vireo. That's a DOT road and an unimproved stub out into the property. And our understanding is that there's some site distance issues at that location that may limit that use.
And what about Dove Street? Dove Avenue, whatever. Not one there?
Not in this plan, no ma'am. The grades would be pretty tough to make that connection.
You said yes.
This is Joanne. Is there an opportunity for us to talk about why we chose Ivy Homes? We would like to discuss a little bit with the neighborhood and with y'all about why we chose them, what we think they bring to the table for Norwood.
Okay, we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Let's finish answering these questions first, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And then I'll recognize you.
Okay.
So, how far along are you with the planning stage that you know exactly what size lots you're going to have on these townhomes? Are you far enough along that you can say this lot, and this lot are going to be 16, and that lot, and that lot, and that lot are going to be 22? Or are you that far along yet?
Probably not exactly. I mean, there's a lot has to do with the grading and engineering, how it's going to work out. I mean, in general, we know how it's going to hit, and a lot of times just like on the rendering you see in front of you, those two interior units, or that, excuse me, not the rendering, but the that facade, Libby, if you can go back to that. The interior units are usually the narrower ones, and then the end units are wider. But we've got other plans that we're building right now that all 4 units in the building are wider. And so you have a mix. And so not each building, there may be buildings that don't have any 16-foot wide units. They may be all wider. We try to provide a variety of those different floor plans.
"16 feet wide doesn't seem like a very wide townhome or condo at all. Any other questions right now of the developer?
No, sir.
Kathy, you have anything else? Okay. We may circle back to talk to you, Mr. Whittaker, and Mr. Ivy in a few minutes, but right now we'll move on to another phase. If I could, I'll get Libby to read the names of the 22 emails that we've gotten, please.
Okay.
Get those in the records.
Would you mind if I take just a break for just a second? We have a caller 6 that has joined us. Who was the last caller you think to join the meeting? If it's you, speak up. Anybody gonna claim it? Okay, well, we'll just hold on that then. I'll go ahead and read those names in.
Okay, please.
So, do you want me to read the phone message people as well?
Start out with just read the names of the 22 email people, and we'll go to the phone and then up to the speakers.
Okay, great. So we received the following emails. One from Larry Hammett at 109 Cascade, Doug Melton at 104 Cascade, and he is on the call. So Jeremy Whidden at 1956 Boland, Brian Villarreal at 1950 Boland, Erica Villarreal at 1950 Boland, Debbie Larkin, 4037 Dove, Danny Rosario at 1946 Boland, Paul Hohen, and I apologize if I didn't get your last name quite right, at 1916 Boland. He turned in a petition slip, so that wasn't a full email, it's just a petition slip. Michelle Douglas, who is a resident of Norwood, Perry Holcomb at 1891 Green Forest Drive, Ross Douglas at 101 Cascade, and his email came with the petition with 171 signatures on the Norwood side. Mary Stacy from 1948 Boland, Christine Liner is a Norwood resident. She's also on this call. I should say Mr. Douglas is on the call as well. John Mullins, I'm assuming he lives on Boland Road. Spencer Cashwell at 1825 Mountside. Josh Farrell, a Hammond Hills resident. We got a list of Boland Road petition signatures. That was organized by the Owens, and I believe the Owens are on this call as well tonight. Robert Long at 115 Cascade. Matt Porter, 2107 Vireo. Mark and Julie Lott at 1827 Mountainside. Jerome Porter on Vireo. And there was an unsigned email with no address given. I'm assuming it goes with a phone message I got from William Kinney. because the comments were similar.
Okay,
And that's-
thank you. Would you also read the list of the 5 phone messages that you got?
Certainly, we received 5 phone messages from Mary Stacy, who also provided written comments, from Linda Owens, who also provided written comments and is on the call, from John Zintz at 1910 Boland Road, from Gene Carver at 539 Siskin, from Willard Joseph Alexander from Vireo Drive, from Hal Hooper at 1821 Mountside, and Mr. Kinney, as I stated earlier.
Okay, thank you. All right.
It should be 7 phone messages.
Yeah,
not
seven of those. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I also went through and sort of picked out 4 emails that I'd like for you to read in their entirety, if you don't mind. And what I tried to do was sort of get a cross section of the 4 different areas that are there, like the Lyndhurst area or the Green Forest area, or that sort of thing. So here are the 4 that I picked out, if you don't mind, Libby.
Okay.
The first one is number 14 from John Mullins on Boland Road.
Okay.
The second one is number 18, which is Robert Leon Lange on Cascade Road.
Okay.
Number 20, which is Mark and Julie Lott at 1827 Mountainside.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the Lyndhurst, I picked out number 21, Jerome Porter off of Vireo.
Okay.
If you would read those 4 into the record, please.
Read those out. And just to clarify for the public who may be listening and anyone else, if you did send me an email and I have it, the email will be printed in full in the minutes. So we're not ignoring it. It will show up in the record.
Right. I just chose 3 or 4 just to get a feel for what the rest of them are saying.
Hang on, let me get to the right ones. All right, so from Mr. Mullins, it says, I'm against the above referenced proposed development by Ivy Development LLC. I live on the Greenway. My property is directly across the Greenway from this proposed development. I've lived in this house since 1980. I believe this development would hurt the beauty of the Greenway. The Greenway is a valuable resource to the citizens of North Augusta. People come from miles around to walk and ride bikes here. I also believe that a project of this size would increase the amount of traffic that would be using the roads and streets of current housing developments that are connecting to this project. Please say no to this project. Thank you, John Mullins. And next would be Mr. Long. And he's saying, to Ms. Libby Hodges, Ivy Development R7 rezoning variance. Regarding the variance of the request by Ivy Development, I've studied the reduction of lot width. I am opposed to the request for these reasons. Impact on the Norwood neighborhood character. The attraction of Norwood subdivision is that existing homes complement each other. To reduce lot frontage will create an unattractive impact in the neighborhood and lessen the property value of existing and new homes. It will violate existing Norwood subdivision restriction covenants. Our neighborhood has the covenant governing the quality of the property to ensure hereby to set up, establish, promulgate, and declare the person owning said lots or any of them hereafter. The protective covenant is a contract nature between existing homeowners. Therefore, to grant the variance will greatly impact the Norwood subdivision. Number 3, economic impact on the Norwood subdivision. Smaller lots will detract from the overall appeal of future home buyers. Compared to established homes, the variance requested will affect property value of Norwood subdivision. In addition to these issues, the overall projection negatively addresses, number 1, environmental impact of the wetlands on the property and overall neighborhood will be devastated. 2, increased traffic load on public safety. Without sidewalks, the children and families must walk on the street, and there is a concern. 3, proposed packing of homes on small lots. Compared to existing lots in Norwood, this proposal allows for more single-family dwelling to be built. The reason is to compress the lot to maximize economic return at the expense of Norwood existing homeowners. Respectfully, RLL, Robert Leon Long. And next is Mark and Julie Lott. Says, I'm writing in regards to the proposal to build townhomes behind our house on Mountside Drive. We have lived in our house for 25 years and have spent a lot of time and money fixing it up and keeping it up. We are completely opposed to this proposal. First, you want to rezone for smaller lots so they can squeeze townhomes in, one on top of another. Then you want to clear the woods by the greenway and chase the wildlife out and ruin the beauty of what we have. The future we see is a lower value to our home, further congestion to our neighborhoods. People like North Augusta for a reason. Our city is growing for a reason. It is a small town with good schools and is a beautiful place to live. If you build on every square inch of space, where's the beauty that is driving people to move here? It's wonderful, but they need to be planned and thoughtful, not just taking the money for anything and everything that comes along. Look at Columbia County, because that's exactly what they did. It is a congested eyesore. Is that really the vision that you have for North Augusta? The majority of people in our older neighborhoods work on their homes and keep them up nicely. When you build, people that can afford to keep their homes up move out and into newer homes and leave the old neighborhoods fall apart. Again, you can look at what has happened in Columbia County, particularly the Martinez area. I grew up there and I know what it used to look like. I woke up one morning last summer and had a cup of tea on our screen porch and watched a deer have breakfast in my backyard. Please do not take that away from us. Do the right thing by those of us who are here now. Please make the right decision and vote no. Sincerely, Mark and Julie Lott. And next is Jerome Porter. Right. I'm very much opposed to the rezoning of the Norwood property to townhome lots. I live in Lyndhurst on Vireo and know about the amount of traffic that passes through the neighborhood. And with 2 new entrances into Norwood from Vireo and Dove, will increase traffic from the several hundred new townhomes that have been proposed. I would hope planning would keep it single-family residential zone. Thank you, Jerry Porter. Okay. Wes, did we lose you?
Yeah, I muted myself, I think.
Oh, okay.
I tried to pick 4 at random that sort of represented the entire area around, not in just one part of it.
Okay.
I guess at this point in time, we will go to 4 people.
Wes, could you hold on a minute? Didn't Libby, you say you had one in favor? Can we hear that one?
Sure.
Yeah, you can. Not any problem. It was short and sweet, I think, if I remember.
Yes,
I'll read it. I've got it right here, Libby, if you don't have it.
I've got it.
Okay.
And this was the one that was unsigned that I assumed from Mr. Kenny. He says, I am in favor of the project which this request is made for. There's a problem with the entity making the request. According to the South Carolina Secretary of State's business webpage, Ivy Development LLC was dissolved on February 29th, 1972. If the Secretary of State is correct, Ivy Development LLC can't apply for a variance. I'm not sure that is factually correct, but it does say that he is in favor of the development.
Okay. At this time, what I'd like to do is move on to the 4 people that have requested to speak and that are on the phone.
We have with us, Ross Douglas, David or Linda Owens. I'm not sure which one's on the phone at the moment.
Okay.
Keith or Christine Liner. I think Christine's with us, and Doug Melton. So you can call on them in any order that you want.
Okay. I'll start with Ross Douglas, but before I do that, I'd like to just get this point across. I'll give you as much time as you need to speak, but if you're second, third, or fourth on the list and somebody's already made a point, try to make a new point rather than just reiterating what somebody else has said. That's my only request. So we'll start with Ross Douglas.
All right,
Ross,
sir.
Would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes, sir.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
All right. So I've tried to edit out to make sure we don't have much repetitiveness, and I can totally understand. So if you just kind of bear with me there, so I had to kind of shuffle my notes a little bit. So good evening. My name is Ross Douglas, 101 Cascade Drive. My family, neighbors, and I ask that you please turn down the changes requested by Ivy Construction to have lot sizes with less than this permitted in Zone R7. Currently, there are about 190 residents in all of Norwood. The Ivies are proposing 190, and that is the count that I got when I was looking at the map. More residents in an area that is 1/3 the size of the existing neighborhood, if not smaller, which is disappointing, being as we were told by Representatives Ivy there would be no more than 120 residents at the time of conversation. The traffic in our neighborhood and surrounding neighborhood streets are already busy and still growing by nearly 800 cars a day. This calculation is on 2 cars per household going to and from the neighborhood twice a day, some households having a teen driver, which would push this much higher. Our streets are not wide enough to satisfy this type of traffic flow. Our residents will no longer be able to walk on the streets to the Greenway. Our children will no longer be able to safely walk to and from school or ride their bikes to friends' houses. The residents of North Augusta who use the Greenway will no longer have a safe way to cross Knotty Pine Drive because of the massive traffic inflow that crosses the Greenway, and then the log jam of traffic on both Pisgah and 5 Knot entrances will be much worse. In essence, it will ruin the safety and dynamic that makes our neighborhood such a great place to live and raise our children. We all know of the wetlands in this section of Norwood. We are very concerned about the infrastructure of this area, the environmental and ecosystem impact this development will bring. Taking away what is left of this habitat for more housing is not responsible action to take. We will be creating more runoff and erosion. Can these wetlands areas provide proper structural support to handle these type of structures, or like in some other neighborhoods that have been developed, will they become a headache for the future homeowners and surrounding neighbors after the developers have left town? I live up against this property and often walk back there. There's a lot of erosion due to the runoff from existing houses. This runoff will not go away, but it increases as there's more of this area is paved. For example, I live at the end of Green Forest and Cascade Drive. The street goes past Green Forest. It's a steep, very steep drop off. And if the road drops down into the neighborhood as they proposed, that's just going to be a constant flow of water that's running down to the wetlands. And in my mind, provide more pollution. The runoff from the surrounding hills will create a disaster in heavy rains due to the loose soil. This is steep terrain surrounding the Weeds wetlands, and the trees are the only thing to keep the soil from washing away. We already have houses with foundation issues on Mountside, which is on the same type of terrain this is. If you take the trees out and put houses or townhomes, you will have foundations with major issues with no one but the homeowner left to deal with it. For the life of me, I can't figure out how you can build houses, let alone many houses on such steep hillsides. That won't support them over the long term, and this is a long-term decision that is being made tonight that will affect generations to come. My family, neighbors, and I sincerely thank you for your time this evening and hope that you will also read the notice that we had 171 signatures on the letter from Norwood residents that bring up many of these same concerns and a few more. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anybody on the board have a question of Mr. Douglas?
No, sir.
Okay. David or Linda Owens? Would you like to speak next? Libby, are they on?
It looks like we may have lost him. Is that caller 6? Is caller 6 the Owens?
Hey, Libby, can you hear me?
Yes. Is this Mr. Owens?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I was speaking there. I'm sorry if I spoke over somebody.
Well, it's okay. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you at all. Would you raise your right hand, please?
Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You Mr. David Owens?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm David Owens. My wife, Linda Owens. We're 1952 Bowling Road. We've been here over 10 years, and I want to thank the board for the opportunity to let the public speak on this matter. I think it's pretty obvious that the neighborhood surrounding this proposed development, it's got everybody, pretty worked up. So I'm not going to, I had several of the same issues that Mr. Douglas addressed, so I won't review those, but I would like to say that I've heard a couple of people tonight said this doesn't affect, I understand that land is zoned right now for R7, which is a small lot, single family residential zoning district for North Augusta. And I think I heard Mr. Abbey or Jason say that the rezoning request does not affect the R7 homes, it's just for the townhomes, but would be reading the letter dated December 21st from Libby Hodges. I read that different, and it says it states pretty clearly that it's a request to shrink the R7 small single-family home lots. So I'm a little confused on what's going on with that, but getting to my point, I'm a little proposed on how quick this has come to a vote. The letter was written on December the 21st by Libby. I'm assuming it went out the same day, but I don't think we received it until the 23rd, maybe the 24th of December. And it stated on there that the plans could not be reviewed until after December the 31st. And if I'm not mistaken, the first time the courthouse was back open after New Year's was this Monday, this past Monday. So it only allowed the public 3.5 days to review the plans and file their, thoughts on it. And I just don't think that's enough time. So I'm going to request that the board postpone this due to the overwhelming response from the public. And most of the people in these neighborhoods don't even know about it yet. So I'm going to request that the board do not vote on this tonight and postpone it until the February meeting to give the public time to respond in a proper way on what our total concerns are. And I'll close with this. Mr. Douglas mentioned environmental. Everybody knows that these woods are full of wildlife. And I'll give you one quick example. A few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I had a tree, and I live on the Greenway, right on the Greenway. There was a tree on the other side of my fence that was dead, and it looked like it was going, if it fell, it was going to fall on my property and take my fence out. So I notified North Augusta. They come over, they said the good news is the fence is on the tree's on our side, we'll cut it down. The bad news is there's a red-headed woodpecker, which is an endangered species, living in it with a nest, and until he's gone, we can't do anything with it. So we've got red-headed woodpeckers, we got deer, we got owls, we got hawks that live in, our backyard, and all that's going to be gone. This is a vital part of North Augusta's Greenway, and I'll close real quickly. I understand all of this land is already zoned R7. If a developer, Mr. Ivy, wants to go in there and develop this land as R7 houses, I'm all for it. I won't be thrilled, but I understand that's his right, and the landowner's right to sell it to a developer. But I just want to say that if the board votes on it tonight, vote no to the rezoning. And I would hope that we could postpone this till February to get a full impact. There's been no traffic studies done. Mr. Jason with Ivy said there's no traffic studies done yet. There's no environmental impact study done. It doesn't look like there's been a lot done to really understand the impact. So I appreciate the board's time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody on the board have any questions of Mr. Owens?
No.
Next up, I believe, is Mr. Liner. Or Mrs. Liner.
Yeah, it's Mrs. It's Christine Liner.
Will you raise your right hand, please?
Yes, sir.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, Ms. Liner.
You're welcome, sir. Mr. Chair, Board, we do thank you for allowing us to speak as members of the public. And I will do my best not to reiterate some of the things that have already been said. Mr. Owen in front of me, I kept thinking, he kept saying he got a letter from Libby, and the only way that I knew about this happening, with my own neighborhood was one of my neighbors that has, Ross Douglas, that has the lot right next to where the sign was posted. He put it on our Norwood page, and that's how we knew. So I concur with him as far as maybe postponing it a little bit. I also concur that we all knew that land was, meant to be developed at some time in the future. I've been in Norwood for 30 years. We moved in here in 1990. And, the small town charm, the lot sizes, the way that homes were built in here, it was a sought after neighborhood, throughout North Augusta, and it still is. I've watched different phases happening up and down Green Forest. I'm right on the corner. I'm at 113 Naughty Pine. So, I've got access to both of the entrances and exits. So you can't go past our house without, getting to the back or going to the front. And the amount of traffic that's going there now is just incredible. To think that we're going to put, I've heard so many different numbers, 120 units, I've heard 190 units, and then somewhere in between those two numbers. As Mr. Douglas said, we only have about 190 right now. So you're talking about doubling the size of this neighborhood, and trying to get the same number of houses, if not more, in that small area. So I'm with Mr. Owen on postponing things. I mean, I know this was all about the R7. I know this was all about getting permission to do a smaller lot for the townhomes. But Leon Long's email spoke to the covenant. And ever since I've lived in here, anytime we went to do any kind of change to our lots, to our houses, we always look to the covenant. And everything that's been built in here and, with the name of Norwood has always followed those covenants. I still remember conversations with Mr. Bunk Mackey, and I know he didn't talk a lot. I get that. But just his visions for the future, like he was slow, methodical on the way that he did things. And I remember when they talked about building on the property we're talking about, and he had told us that there would always be a connection to Martintown Road, as well as a bridge over Cascade. But the bridge over Cascade was going to be too expensive, and so that kind of got dropped. and no progress was ever made. I mean, I understand, Mr. Mackey passed away, but things had kind of not developed since then. So we all knew this day might come sometime, but please take a look at the traffic studies, take a look at those environmental impact things that everyone is talking about, and then take it a step further. And the two questions that I asked, that if you look at the covenant, just making sure that they would be single family homes versus the townhomes that are there. And I know you can find different definitions of townhomes versus single homes, but I'm sorry, my husband's pointing at me.
That's okay. Keep going.
I know, I'm trying. He didn't want to talk, and now he's yelling at me about saying something. There were like three specific parts of the covenant. I don't know if the BZA board is aware of the covenant, but we would just expect that the next part of the development follow the same things that are in here. So that's pretty much how I want to sum things up with two questions that I asked in my email. How would this neighborhood add to the overall well-being of North Augusta without negatively impacting those who are already here? And how will North Augusta safely integrate the additional population into our town, our roads, our environment, and our schools? And once again, thank you again for letting us speak. That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody on the board have any questions of Ms. Liner?
No, sir. But I do have one question. Is this an extension of Norwood? Or is this a whole new subdivision? Does their covenants go to this particular piece of property? How does that all interact?
So I can answer some of that. Since there were no concept plans, this is not a planned development, which is a specific zoning district that would already have provisions for what could be allowed in this area. This is just straight R7 zoning, so any new development from here is treated almost like an independent subdivision. Whether or not they include this piece in the Norwood covenants, that's a legal question that's outside the jurisdiction of the planning department or the city, because we do not enforce homeowners covenants here.
Okay, thank you. That answers a lot.
Yeah.
Wait, I need to interject there, sir.
Yes,
we
ma'am.
don't have a homeowners. Yeah, we don't have a homeowners association, and I agree with her. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not really sure exactly how. I just know that it talks about the plat that's in the book on page 63, and that did include that extension down past Green Forest on that overall plat. So I guess that's why I was thinking it also applied here. But I just wanted to make it aware to everybody. I knew that it might not apply to this particular meeting, and it could be something different, but that's kind of what we were going by when we went. I just don't want to be confused with a homeowners association, because we're not. This is a contract with the city or the county. I mean, that's who signed it. Members of the county as well as Mr. Mackey. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of Ms. Liner?
Well, I have one. The plat she's talking about, is that the original plat for Norwood?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have tried to find it because I've seen it before. Yeah, it was the original one. It's in the record. It does say for Norwood 4 subdivision. It does say for phase 2, but I saw the plat. I wish I had it. And it had this extension down on it. I don't think it was called phase 2, but on that plat that was in the record, it had the homes like behind Mr. Douglas's house it had those already lined out on what Mr. Mackey's plan was. Unfortunately, I just don't have that plat in front of me.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't clear which plat you were talking about.
That's okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, next I believe is Doug Melton.
Yes, I'm here.
You raise your right hand, Mr. Melton.
Yes.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Doug Melton. I live at 104 Cascade Drive. I used to be neighbors with Chris. I lived also at one time at 108 Knotty Pine Drive. So I've been in the neighborhood since 1989. I wanted to correct a couple of things that have been said. One, I would like to make sure that the board members read my email, because I don't believe this variance can be granted under South Carolina law. But I don't want to, you can read the email. There's two things. There has been a traffic study done. The city commissioned one somewhere in the 2003 timeframe, when we had a discussion whether they were going to open up Hugh Street between the two neighborhoods. And they had an outside consultant perform the traffic survey. And what we were told at that is that future development was going to be a significant issue traffic-wise, and that it basically wasn't safe. Reducing the lot size and granting this variance would have significant issue with traffic. And I just don't see how you can grant that. The other thing I want to point out is there was a comment about two outlets. Nepal is not another outlet. There is no other outlet except Green Forest. Nepal just goes to Cascade, which then goes to Green Forest. So it is one outlet. And so that was the reason that at that time, the city planning director had asked Mr. Mackey, Horse's dad, to look at opening up at Hugh Street. Unfortunately, the city at that time had not evaluated the risk of making it a nice little straight through cut through from Lyndhurst to the high school, which would have increased significant more traffic flow. But I think that is the big issue is the traffic. I don't see how you can prove something that would, it's not going to work. So. Oh, another thing is I want to point out is the two entrances, goes out Knotty Pine from Green Forest, and Green Forest goes out to Five Notch. We have had flooding to the level where the greenway is, to where that was impassable before, where we had 4 foot of water across the roadway and could not go out that way. So.
Anything else, sir?
No, I don't want to rehash whatever all has been said.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
No.
Any question of Mr. Melton?
I have one. That traffic study, again, tell me what it specifically studied and what it said specifically. I don't, your email is on the computer and I can't find it.
The study was done with, and the future, the plot that Chris Leiner was talking about was presented at, it was a planning meeting sometime in around 2003, give or take a couple of years, one side or the other. And it was before they had developed the Hugh Street and Bobby Drive section of the neighborhood. And the traffic study was looking at just like I think
Ross Douglas had talked about, the number of vehicle trips would go through, and it was basically, it was over what was safe, what was considered safe. And so the whole purpose of the trying to develop an opening at Hugh Street was to allow it to be a safe number of vehicles going on a daily basis down Green Forest. So that was what the basis of the traffic study did. Again, it was the North Augusta City that commissioned the study and hired the traffic consultant to do the study.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Libby, do we have another one?
We do not have another phone commenter. I would like to mention that generally in the world of traffic studies, they will expire after a certain time because external factors may affect traffic generation. You know, things change in neighborhoods. So an old study would not necessarily be appropriate to use. Additionally, unless a traffic study was adopted specifically by the city with specific conditions related to this, there might not be much we can do to enforce any of that. So I know I have read some of the minutes from those meetings back then. There was some question about the Planning Commission potentially kind of overstepping their authority in some of the conditions that they made, which is part of what we're trying to avoid by coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals in the proper procedure. So take that as you will. When it comes to plans that may have been made in the past, our current code, they expire after 2 years. It's been longer than 2 years and I believe there's never been a preliminary plat approved for this area. So there would not necessarily be any vested plans that we could force the developer to go back to. And that's why I was saying earlier that, you know, as it is zoned R7, now that they are proposing development, we would make them meet R7 standards.
Right. Okay. And I want to point out too, I know it was mentioned a couple of times that this was a zoning change. This is not a zoning change. This is a variance for a width of a lot. And that's what this is. This is not changing zoning. Okay, so we don't have anybody else that have requested to speak. So at this point in time, I think I will close the portion of the people that were against it.
Hey, Wes?
Yes,
So
sir.
we need to hear Miss Mackey real quick.
She
was
going to be next. You didn't let me finish.
All right. I didn't know if we're going to be part of, if you include her in the public or not.
Yeah, I was going to say that now we'll open it up for people that are for this project.
You want to say
or wants
something?
to speak, just speak in general. And Ms. Mackey, you will be next.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, will you raise your right hand, please?
Yes,
You swear to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes.
Thank you.
I would like to add that Forrest is here. We're both here and we want to tell some of the background of this. And so I'm going to start off by very briefly going down a list of things that were just said that we need to answer quickly. First of all, we did not build Mountside. I want to make sure that's clear to everyone, and neither did Forrest's dad. The other thing is that Vireo is not accessible. We've been told by DOT from someone that wanted to purchase this and come in that way. We were told that. And I want to take a moment, and I'm going to say some things, and then Forrest will add to it. And some of this is very emotional to us because this is our Forrest heritage, his family's heritage, taking had it for 50 years. So, first of all, okay,
Go ahead.
first of all, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The greenway is not going to be right against these houses. I think Forrest has just measured it, just scaled it a little bit, and it's 500 feet towards away from the edge of the greenway to where the actual houses start. I'm going to tell you the points that we had. We have always tried to protect Norwood in every way we could. 4 years ago, Forrest's brother bought property that was out on 5 Notch to keep that from being bought by someone that was going to build something against the back of Norwood at 5 Notch. That's just one example. So Forrest was approached by a builder who has retired, and he suggested to him that we would be able to sell our property. He knew somebody, and it was a mass grader who would come in, mass grade, build houses that were not what we wanted to see happen. We walked the greenway one evening, and I said to Forrest, he said, I can't do that. I cannot do that. And he will share more of that with you. This property can be sold. It can be turned into a neighborhood of smaller homes. I've spoken to Jason Winter about that. You know, we're just building a bunch of small houses. Right now, their price points are this. The townhomes will be priced from $160 to $225. The single families, first section would be $225 to $250. And then the next one is $240 to $275. And the next one is $300,000 plus. So this will be an ideal situation. We rode into Augusta, and I looked at how they did walking paths through their neighborhood in Augusta, and how they had it coming down with steps onto a greenway and walking. And I said, this is what we want. This is the quality we want. Forrest and I worked with their dad years ago. He worked in Westlake. He worked in the Abbeys. He worked in other places. And they were the same mindset that we were. We met with them, and we left that meeting, and we said, these people will be the right one for us. This is the builder for us. We cannot do the other. So I'm going to let Forrest now tell you what his thoughts are. And let me just say this. We plan to name the streets after our children. Norwood is our heritage here. We know what Norwood is. And there are houses in the last year that have sold in there. I've looked up every house that's sold in there. Those are the same price points that Ivy's going to do. We don't want to do a mass graded neighborhood. We want Ivy to do it. So hold on one moment, and here's Forrest.
You need to swear me in.
Yes, Forrest, raise your right hand, please.
Okay.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir.
I heard a lot of things that I never heard before tonight. I think I knew my daddy better than anybody. I've never heard of Martintown Road being hooked up. That was never really an option. And the bridge at Cascade, I never really heard anything about that. So I don't know. I'm just basing it, I know what his thoughts were, especially close to his death about this piece of property. And I don't know. I just wanted to address that. The flooding that was brought up about the greenway being unused, I don't know what year that was, but I know when we had the major flood 20 some odd or maybe 30 years ago now, it was always passable coming through. That was actually before the greenway was installed, I think. Before that was when it was just a railroad thing in there. None of this, a lot's been brought up about runoff. None of what we're doing really, what we're talking about, a changing of density, is going to have any impact on the runoff. There's going to be the same. I mean, the runoff's the runoff, and it's not whether it's. It just doesn't have that much impact on it that I see. And the other thing is, it's all got to be engineered where the retention handles it. So I mean, we're not trying to create problems. Those are the items that really caught my attention. And as I said, we have Norwood is very special to us. The last place that my daddy's body ever went before it went in the grave was through Norwood. Norwood's been a very important part of my life. I do think that Norwood needs an economic shot in the arm that this would give it. And that's pretty much it.
I wanted to continue with this a moment and just say that when a development comes, I understand everyone gets, upset and wonders what's going on. But as far as said, I mean, we've had some situations in Norwood, and I have contacted the city numerous times and said, we got to clean this up. We got to make this happen. We need to try to work on this. Even though we aren't still working in there, we're watching it. Felix Mackey lives on Green Forest. That's why he will call us and go, hey, this is happening. And that's why he went and purchased that piece of land to protect the back side of it. This is a neighborhood that we want to happen because we don't want it just to go down and down and down. And when you can have somebody of the standards that Ivy Homes does, if you go and ride in the neighborhood, and I noticed on one of the sites, somebody said that they knew somebody and their house has been falling in and all of this. When that house was probably not even built by Ivy, because Ivy went into his neighborhood after another builder had already been in there and had some issues. So what we want you to look at is, if you look at the picture of those patio homes and those condos, they're not some little thing just sitting there. And another point I want to make, and Libby can clear this up for you, but what we're trying to put in there is something that's even more enhanced than Watley Place. Watley Place has 16-foot patio condos, and they don't have a garage in the front, and that's why they don't. We're putting them in the back, and then they're going to be looking out into the way. But if we go back to the people on Bowen Road, when we walk down the Greenway and we look to the left from Martintown, we see the back of their houses, but there's trees between that. The same thing's happening on the other side. Am I right, Jason?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, how many feet is this subdivision going to be from the Greenway?
It's probably, several hundred.
Yeah. So you're not going to be walking by a desert, because Jason respects what we're doing here. And for those of you that don't know Jason, he served on city council for North Augusta. He's not coming over here. I mean, that's why we went and met with him. He understands North Augusta. He has pride in North Augusta. Yes, he's moved back to his family's farm, but he liked North Augusta enough to give him his own time to serve. So he knows what we can do and not do. And if you go to Watley Place, they have the smaller lots. I'm on the planning commission. We just did a BZA. We just turned over to BZA another one, and they approved it. And that one's done the same way. It's just, that's the way it is. But it is going to be developed. And this is their best choice, the ones that are unhappy. And I don't want to call those people in there to come in and mass grade. I mean, right now, there are mass graded neighborhoods with houses with 3,000 square feet, and the lot is, what, Libby, 60 feet wide, 40 feet wide, isn't it? Did Libby hear me?
I heard you. I don't think it's appropriate for me to respond right now. That would be up there.
Okay.
What?
I think they're 40 to 50 feet wide. I'm not sure. But anyway, and I may be wrong on that. But I trust the Ivies and I trust Jason to put something there instead of them just hiring some local person to go out there and go, okay, I drew it, and they had just done it on their computer on a Monday morning. They got a man from Bluffton, South Carolina, to show them. That's probably why we have alleys. I mean, we haven't done alleys here except Hammond's Ferry. So they tried to get someone creative to make this better. So we're saying, okay, we'll connect. I mean, right now I spoke to one of the city council members and I said, you know, the way it was set up at one point, it was going to come in on, road was going to come in and cross over the Greenway at Cascade, right, Barney? Yeah. And so that was going to be the other entrance, but we didn't want to do that. But we can still do that if somebody wants that to happen. But we're trying to make it where it's 3 roads into the neighborhood from the road. And if we want to put in more stop signs, stop them all the way down the street. Stop them at every corner.
I got a question. Ms. Mackey, Joanne. You said something that the planning commission had just sent the BZA another one for 16 feet. What was that?
That was on Bradley Terrace Road.
That was not 16 feet by any stretch of the imagination. It was 26 feet, and it was a different project.
Right.
Okay.
But it wasn't 40. It wasn't 40.
No, it was not 40, but they came in with a plan that showed us exactly what each lot was going to look like, and that helped them a lot.
Right.
But it was not 16 feet on Bradley. As far as I know, and I've been on this thing a long time, this group has never approved a 16-foot one anywhere. I don't know who approved the Watley place, but it wasn't this BZA.
Right. It was not the BZA. It was read and accepted by the actual way that Jason and all of us, when we read this and thought this for our R7. Watley Place and Norwood are R7. And that was done the same way.
Right. But this body has never approved a 16-foot lot.
Well, so Watley Place has some, and we're R7, and that's where
I understand what you're saying. What I'm telling you is, we know this is R7. We know that Watley Place was R7. I'm telling you that this board did not approve anything for Watley Place to have 16-foot lot width. I don't know who approved it, but this board didn't. And it probably happened during a period of time when a lot of waivers were granted that nobody knew about. And that's all I'll say.
We don't know. I mean, we just know it's been done in the past.
Right.
I don't know what the process was.
And I don't think it's an unattractive. Do you think Watley Place is unattractive?
I don't have a clue. I don't know that I've ever been into Watley Place.
I mean, I don't have any problem with Watley Place. I know lots of people in our community live there, and their kids have lived there, and
yeah.
I mean, it's very well respected. It sells for a nice price point. They have it well groomed, and it's not even going to. Ours that Ivy's presenting is a much more impressive property, and should really be very much appreciated. But I mean, Watley Place sells at a really good price point now.
Right. We understand, and just so you understand, is we look at each individual project that comes to us for a variance or a waiver or whatever. we look at every one of them separately. We don't compare them to anything else. We try to let each project stand on its own.
Okay, I don't have any problem with that. So that's even
Good.
better for us, because what we're
Good.
trying to do is to bring something into the city that has builders that will build a fine home in the city, and they will take definitely take the time and the effort, as they have shown, just minor to y'all, but costly to them, by going to Bluffton to get more ideas for more creativity. And yes, it is a lot of wetlands. And yes, they're going to be weaving through it. And I think it's going to really be pretty. I mean, it's going to be that you curve and turn and go through there, and you've got land sitting there with trees on it. They even colored it in green to help people see how they're trying to make it better than what's being done in other places.
Good. And we appreciate that. Anything else, Ms. Mackey or Forrest?
Go ahead, Forrest.
No, we're fine.
Okay. Any questions from the BZA members of Ms. Mackey or Forrest?
No.
Okay.
No.
Anybody else? I don't think there's anybody else on at this time, Libby, that we need to bring up.
Not unless you wanted to invite any response from the callers, but that's at your discretion.
I think we've heard from the people we need to hear from. I do want to circle back and just ask Mr. Winiger one question again. I think I wrote down right that you're saying that there's going to be 72 townhomes. Was that what I heard you say?
Yes, sir. I think it's.
Did I miss a number?
No, you got it. It's roughly 72. I think right now we show maybe 74 on this concept plan, but it'll fluctuate.
That's close enough.
But it's roughly 72.
Right. So I just want to make sure we got that number in it. But so if I understand what you're asking for the variance for for all of the townhome properties lots to have a 16-foot width. You may put some of them at 30 feet, or you might put one at 40, or you might put one at 25, but you're asking for all of them to be at 16.
That's correct. And
it would be at your discretion as to what size lot you put where, which means to me that if you did every one of them, you could end up with an additional 72 or more townhomes if you moved every one of them to 16 feet. Am I wrong in my math?
No, you're right. And so maybe we look at it, so to alleviate some of that concern, maybe we look at it as we have to average out 26 feet or 28 feet wide across all the townhomes. So that way we have to have some larger and we can have some smaller, but they have to meet a minimum average of, 26 feet wide or 28 feet wide.
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
This is Forrest.
Yes, Forrest.
They'll never be able to exceed the maximum density. It doesn't matter. I mean, they can own the density is the density. They cannot exceed the maximum density. In other words, they can't make the lot smaller and create, instead of having 12 lots, they have 24. They can never be over the maximum density.
What's to keep them from doing that?
The zoning is 7 units to the acre.
Is that the minimum or maximum?
Max. Yeah.
Libby, is that the way you're reading that, Libby?
That's not exactly the way I read it, but that might be correct.
No, it is correct. That's by definition, that's what it is.
That's the way I read it, 7 units per acre.
You can't
7 units per
cut,
acre.
I mean, they could make,
Okay,
7 16-foot buildings in a row, but they can only have 7. You know what I'm saying? Per acre.
yeah, I got you. I interpreted it a little differently, but that's okay. I'm all right.
Well, I mean, I knew where you were headed, and I understand what you were thinking, but I think that's the wrong concept in that it's maximum number of units per acre, maximum
Right.
density.
I read that now. I read it that way. Okay. Before I close,
So
yes, sir.
you're showing a block of 4, maybe 5, so that would be considered that block as 4 or 5. That's an acre. Or is that going to bleed over to the backside of a half of one, and is that going to be added into it? It doesn't work like that.
Tell him what it does.
I think it's maximum lots or maximum units per gross acre of the entire site.
That's correct.
But we're only using part of the site because 29 acres is wetlands.
Right.
Well, I still got a concern here about that. Okay. Do we have any other questions of the developer?
Yeah, you have some down here as future. Will you be moving any of these townhomes down into your future plans?
I don't know yet. There's you have to cross the wetlands in a couple spots, and to do that, you'd have to buy mitigation credits from a wetlands mitigation bank. And right now, there are no mitigation banks in this drainage basin. So that, I mean, that's a possibility for the future. I don't know a time frame for that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure I understand that. You said that, Jim, you were saying that I don't see that in here, that some of these might be put in a future, like phase 2. Is that what you're saying? But yet there are no mitigation units to be bought.
Right.
Correct.
If you look on the plan, there's some just circles that says future outside that could be, but like I said, he's got to cross wetlands to get to it.
Wetlands to do that.
So, I mean, we could either, hash that out next time, save that as, we'll go, if he does do it or the next developer or whoever, we'll address those at that time.
Mr. Chairman, can I add something else?
Yes, sir.
So I mentioned that, you might consider just an average townhome lot width. We could also look at it as, we could say an 80-foot block length to have 4 buildings in it. And then we could have 2 16s and 2 24s, but we'd be limited to just to 4 units within that 80-foot block length.
Libby, I'll have to lean on you for that.
I understand generally what he's saying. I think to speak to Jim's concern about whether or not you're going to put townhomes anywhere else, that would be at the discretion of the board to potentially add a condition to limit where townhomes could go.
So Libby, let me ask that: if it's R7 and townhomes are allowed by code, I'm not, we don't have any plans right this minute to cross those wetlands. I'm just thinking of future. Can the BZA limit a use that's already allowed by code?
It wouldn't be limiting the use. It would be limiting where these narrower lots could go.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Wes, and I think of what he's concerned with, and I think a lot of us are. This is a great concept, but we all don't want 7 16-foot condos in a row. And I know that's not your intent, but if this, if I could squeeze a little extra condo, or I can get, 7 in here instead of 4, what's preventing you to do that? Do we set a limit or something on there, say, okay, no more than 2 16-foot per block or per section? I mean, like I said, I don't want to get to the point, and I know that kind of hurts you, but you can make some of your 25 footers, 28 footers. I know it kind of changes your plans a little bit, but that gets a ton of 16 footers in there. It might need everybody needs 2 bedrooms, but I just, like I said, I just don't want to see a line of 16 footers in a row.
I understand. Right.
I guess I'd feel more comfortable if we were further along with some plans that showed us exactly what each one of these lots are going to be like. The last couple that we've had to deal with, that they came in with that and they showed us exactly what the dimensions were going to be for every lot, and it helped us with the concept a lot better than just having a blank piece of paper and saying we're going to put some 16, some 14, some 25s. I mean, and I'm just making stuff up, but I'm still concerned about that.
Wesley.
Yes.
What Jason just said, I wrote down, it was 4 buildings, 2 16s and 2 26s. Does that not make you feel better?
Makes me feel some better.
Jason, is that the way I understood it? Did I understand it properly?
So if we did, in each block, if we only did a maximum of 2 16 units per block, and then a maximum of 4 buildings total, in that block. So the rest of them, the other 2 would have to be wider.
Right.
And I feel better that, because at some point you might say, hey, I only want to put 1 16 in here and do 3 buildings at 25 foot, which that would give you some leadway, but I think it would make us feel better as a board that we're limiting you to, only 2 16 footers. Now you can't, you might have a 22, you might have a 29 or a 38, but I think you start getting in, we're just trying to prevent so many 16 footers in a block. And I think the 2 or the 1, no more than 2, I think, per block would work. I think for everyone.
We can also say, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. We can also say, what if we did a maximum of 36 townhomes total at 16 feet wide, and the rest of them have to be wider?
Which works out, but we want some kind of feeling that they're not all, these all, 6 or 8 of them in a row.
Well, that's what we would do. Say we would do 2 units, maximum 2 units per block at 16 feet wide, and then the other 2 would have to be wider, and then in total, no more than 36 16-foot wide units.
That sounds
That
sounds really good, because that's saying, I'm sorry, Jim, I caught everything.
Yeah, I think we're basically down the same line, Joanne, is that, I don't want to take from y'all, but at the same time, it gives a lot of people that we don't have a bunch of little small condos, and I think that still gets you what you want.
Right. And I
it's what everybody is.
Yeah. I think that has a really good look, Jason, the way you presented it. But if we say just 2 in that 4 can be 16, and the most it can be in the whole development was what, 36?
36.
So that limits it, gets it all calmed down. And so I understand what Jim's talking about, and I don't want to see that in Norwood either. As I've already said, Parson, and Jason will tell you, we have talked and talked and talked. We like this. We don't like that. They even let me go out in their neighborhood and pick out house plans that I like the front of. And I said, I love this one. No, I don't like that one very much, but I love these 2 and that kind of thing. I mean, they are really working with us to make this a really fine neighborhood. So to do the 2 and the 2, I think that's perfect. And then we don't have a road that we drive up and go, ugh.
All right. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better about that. But I am more than anything else, I'm concerned about where the heck we're going to put all these cars when they start to go home at night or go out in the morning. How are they going to get out of there?
Absolutely worried to death about that also.
Wes, if you don't mind if I butt in just a little bit,
Yes.
I would like to remind the board that the purpose of this hearing is to make the findings that are required by law. So,
Right, I need to move on for that. I agree with you.
Up on the reservation, we need to make sure that we're following what's required there.
So what I'm going to do now is close the public hearing. But before I close the public hearing, I am going to read the 10 items that we need to talk about and just make sure everybody understands. We have to find yes for all of these. One of them doesn't apply. It pertains to signage, and we don't have to do that. But in order for us to grant a variance, we have to find in the affirmative for all of these. Number one is unnecessary hardship does exist. Number two, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Number three is that these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Number four, because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And number five is the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late night activity. As I said, number 6 does not apply as signage. Number 7 is the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to A, allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted by the zoning district, B, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or C, change zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. Number 8 is that the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Number 9 is the fact that property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be considered a ground for a variance. And number 10, in granting the variance, the Board of Appeals, Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare. And again, based on the findings, we have to find in the affirmative of all of them. If we find negative in one, the variance is not granted. So having said that, I will now, and read those, I will now close the public hearing and we'll start our deliberation. All right. As per our custom, we will take these one at a time, and hopefully by the time we get to the end, if we have found in the affirmative of all of them, it'll just take a motion to approve, or if we find one that is not in the affirmative, it will stop the process and we'll get a motion then to deny.
Oh, Wes, may I interrupt for just 1 second? I'm sorry. I feel like I'm doing
Yes,
that a lot. And just tell the callers that since the public comment portion is over, they can feel free to leave if they would just like to watch it online.
Right. Do I need to say that again, or you think that's fine?
I think they heard us. Most of them popped off. So.
Okay. Very good. They'll probably be on Facebook watching us next. Okay. During our deliberation, Mr. Whittaker and Miss Ivy and Joanne and Forrest, we may ask you some questions, but it'll just be general questions that we need an answer to. All right. If the board's ready, we will take them one at a time. An unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant states that our proposed minimum townhome lots width is 16 feet. 40 feet is extremely wide for a townhome. There have been other townhome developments that built in North Augusta under R7 with lots widths less than 40 feet. The existing topography and other large amounts of wetland on the property severely limit the amount of developable area. The staff notes that while townhomes are allowed use, the code appears to create a conflict, as the code states townhomes are exempt from lot area requirements, but does not state that a similar exemption applies to a lot width or setbacks, either in the notes to table 3.3 or in any other section of the code. Staff is not authorized to waive these requirements without approval from the BZA. Staff also notes that while there are existing townhome developments in the city limits on smaller lots, they may not be subject to the same dimensional standards due to development prior to the adoption of the code and the varying requirements of the zoning district. The applicant does not provide an example of this situation in the submittal document, so staff cannot adequately respond. The board has reviewed similar requests. The board may request additional studies if desired. So I guess I'm a little bit concerned that in two places now, the applicant is proposing that the minimum townhome lot is 16 feet. And I think we've discussed that a pretty good bit, that we don't want all of them in there to be 16 feet.
Look, Wes, is that something that we can add? I mean, if we approve this here, we can add it at number 10 to make it say, hey, you can only limit 16 foot to each block is for maximum of 32, blah, blah, blah.
I think we could do that. I think we could say it's approved with the exception of as outlined in item 10.
Yes.
Something to that effect. We could do that.
Yeah, we'll probably need to go through item by item to set out the conditions when it comes to the discussion part.
Okay.
After the motion is made.
All right. That's a good idea. I think it's somewhere in here, and I think this might be the spot. I want to see a traffic study. I want to, in my own mind, I want to be able to know that we're not fixing to put a hazard in the middle of Norwood and Lyndhurst and Mount Side and places like that.
So if I could just interject again, I feel, like I said, I feel like I'm doing
anytime. You interject anytime.
Regardless of what the BZA approves tonight, the project will still have to go through the preliminary plat approval process, and that will include traffic studies, and that will include making sure that we don't create a dangerous situation.
So you're
to the development code.
So if we say, hey, okay, we'll do this 16-foot lots on the condos, blah, 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 like we had talked about, traffic study says, hey, this is going to create a problem. I mean, they still could put 16-foot things, but they got to just cut back the number of houses or townhomes, correct?
Depending on what the traffic study would say, yeah, that may be the case, yes.
Or can we, make it say, hey, if the traffic study says this doesn't work, your 16-foot don't work?
That's at the board's discretion.
But we can't do that. We have authority to do that. Yes, we do.
Okay. So as I understand that, we can go ahead and approve, but we got to wait to see what the traffic study. And if there's no issues with the traffic study, they're clear to go. They don't need to come see us again.
If that's what the board decides and how the conditions are written, then that could be possible.
Right. Now, Libby, they get a traffic study back, does it go to you or does it go to planning commission?
Initially, it will come to me, but as a major subdivision, it will be going back before the planning commission for final approvals.
Okay. So there's two more shots at looking at traffic.
Yeah, staff will do a review as part of the preliminary plat review. And then from there, we will send our findings to the planning commission.
All right. Well, what's the board's pleasure on number one?
I kind of agree. I think it's a yes, but I think, let's say we need to limit, 16-foot lots. So like we talked about, 2 per block, no more than 36 or 32. What did you say? 32 max. And for future development, you must come back to the board.
Jackie?
I agree with Jim. I don't see that an unnecessary hardship exists. It's just the fact that he wants to put more in than what we're comfortable with. So, I mean, I think the way that Jim has stated it is a good way to look at it for that one, to make that a yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a clarification question?
Yes, you can.
We mentioned, or I mentioned, a maximum of 36 units at 16 feet wide, and I know it's at the board's discretion to make that final number, but that's what we had suggested.
Okay, I said 32, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
So, 36, which is half of what he's proposing right now, which works out to be 2 per block that he has laid out on his plans. So if he puts 4 per block, 2 of them be 16 foot, which will be 2 bedroom units. The other ones will be 3 bedrooms.
Okay. We'll put a tentative yes on that one. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The applicant states that the property in total is approximately 89.64 acres plus or minus. Of this total, approximately 28 acres is in wetlands and/or in floodplain based on a recent delineation by our wetlands consultant. Also, the steep topography on the site is a challenge. To work with the topography and avoid wetland impacts, we are clustering the lots in the area best suited for development. Staff provides maps in the attachment for evaluation of the topography and the wetlands as stated. The purpose statement for the R7 zoning district states that it is the intent of the district to balance higher intent densities with common open space. Any development will be expected to conform with open space requirements and development code. That's a must.
Now, where are these open spaces to be? Is that the wetlands, the open space?
Oh, Kathy, we won't know that until we get our preliminary plat plans in.
Okay.
But my guess is that a goodly portion of it will be in the wetland area.
All right. Thank you.
And will y'all be adding, I know Joanne talked about it earlier, and this is just for my info. Will you be adding boardwalks and walkways throughout those areas or close to them?
Excuse me. We plan on putting sidewalks down both sides of the road, and we will. We'd like to build a boardwalk through the wetlands. I think that we can do that without a core permit and connect to the greenway.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what I had meant, that this was really going to be special for that neighborhood and for all of the people on the greenway. They can walk up.
Thank you.
I think that's a yes, Wesley, because there are, special circumstances to that piece of property that don't necessarily, are not necessarily the same for the other property in the area. And that would be number 3.
Jim, you all right with that?
Yes.
Number 3, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Other projects have, according to the developer, other projects have been developed in the city since the current development code was established, and they have townhome lots less than 40 foot wide in R7. We've already hashed this out. Some of those have been on land that was much flatter and without the large impact of wetlands. Staff notes that while there are existing townhome developments in the city limits on smaller lots, they may not be subject to the same dimensional standards due to development prior to adoption of this code and the varying requirements by zoning districts. The applicant does not provide an example of this assertion in the submittal document, so staff cannot adequately respond through this staff report. Staff notes that the board has reviewed similar requests and the board may request additional studies if desired. Previous portions of Norwood were developed as single-family detached lots prior to the R7 designation. Initial building permits were found from 2008, indicating the preliminary plat would have been revised well prior to 2008. Reviewed, excuse me. Is Norwood R7 now? Libby, do we know is Norwood R7?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on, I'll go back to the map.
All right. Okay. I will state this one more time just so everybody understands. And I think Kathy has been on here longer than I have, but I do not ever remember us granting a variance for a 16-foot side lot anytime.
I don't either. I don't remember that at all. I know the ones on Bradleyville Road, we were, I was reticent to say 26 feet on them.
It was 26.
But you have to remember, Wesley, that this is just a condo. It's not, they're not going to build another house on side 16 foot.
Right.
So this is the townhome that's actually 16 foot wide, which is still seems small.
Yep.
Wesley, they didn't bring those other things to y'all. They were done by staff.
During that period of time, there were a bunch of stuff done by staff, if I remember right. But that's a different story. That was pre-Libby.
Well, we're not saying that it was right or wrong. And I do think you do know some folks that do live out in Whiteley Place. And those were done by staff because they interpreted it. Also, Skip Gorkovich, who wrote this, also approved it.
Yeah. Like I said, that was pre-Libby.
Okay, so Skip wrote it.
Wes, I think it's important while you guys are making your deliberation that the public comment period has been closed.
Yeah. Yeah, we may from time to time ask y'all questions, but otherwise, it has been closed. Do we have a problem with number 3?
I don't.
I don't either.
Number 4. Because of the conditions, the application of the chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. This one I'm a little hazy on. The 40-foot minimum width for townhomes is generally not compatible in this market. That requirement effectively makes a 40-foot wide single-family detached lot and a 40-foot wide townhome the same. I see where they're coming from on that. Staff notes that the R7 zoning statement indicates the general support for the market flexibility. Staff does not determine the profitability of any development design. Staff also notes that a single-family resident would be limited to a 30-foot wide home on a 40-foot lot wide due to 5-foot setbacks on each side. Minor overhangs would be allowed as outlined in Article 4. I still keep coming back to the fact that I think the 40-foot is unreasonable. I think that was a mistake made there, and it needs to be corrected. Excuse me. But 16-foot wide lot is not wide lot, and that bothers me. And I get the density. We're only going to put 7 per acre regardless of what size it is. But so, what is your pleasure, Jim and Kathy?
Well, I have a lot of trouble with 16 feet also. But I think that 40 feet is, if that's the same size as a single family home, then I think a mistake was made. But that's really not the issue here. It's the issue is, what about a 16-foot house?
Let's I can give this a tentative yes right now. We might want to circle back to this one. Jim, what's your feeling?
You know what? If we're talking strictly townhomes, yes, 40 foot is too big. And the same thing, kind of like what we did over there, and I know we can't bring it back up because it's completely different, but Bradleyville, we did, the land was a little more flatter and a little more spread out and so forth, that he's able to get some bigger ones there. I still have a problem with 16 foot as well. But at the same time, I mean, it's a townhome. I mean, they're connected all together. I think they're nice looking. I kind of like the Village of Riverview a little better. No offense, but they're not as tall and single story more or less. But they're all 16 foot is a concern, but in the whole scheme of things, I mean, it works. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's an apartment more so than a townhome. I hate to say it like that, refer to it like that, but it's kind of like an apartment. But in this setup and property, it works. That's why I think with us adding the, only, no more than 36 and 2 per block, or we could even get down, not to their likings, but maybe we can get down to 1 per block. But I think it works. I think if you put 3 in there, 3 big ones, I think you're going to be out of scale, out of the price range of some people. I don't know. I mean, I'm just gonna throw stuff out there, see what sticks.
Yeah, we'll give it a tentative yes, and we may circle back to that one. This one is sticky too. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, and incompatible late night activities. The applicant states that the property is already zoned R7, which allows townhomes by right. R7 also allows a gross density of 7 units per acre, which on this site would be around 600 units. Approximately 1/3 of the site will be preserved as natural buffer area and will be providing parks and meetings of all other buffer landscaping and setback requirements as required by code. Staff notes the surrounding properties appear to have approximately 60-foot lot widths. Lots further from the site are generally residential at varying densities. The property appears to have been originally planned as an extension of the Norwood subdivision. Generally, single-family residential use are compatible with single-family residential uses. Excuse me. Staff notes also that the applicant will be required to comply with all other requirements of the development code. However, the plans do not currently provide enough information to verify all of these arrangements will be met. This variance, if approved, will only vary the allowed lot widths. Based on the traffic generation, Article 14, the applicant will be required to submit a traffic impact analysis and apply best practices for traffic management based on the study results.
Now I'm having a really hard time with this one.
And as we heard earlier tonight, somewhere there is probably is a approved plat of section 2, 3, or 4, whatever it is, of Norwood.
Wasn't
just,
Libby saying that if it's old, it's not doesn't pertain anymore, can't be used anymore? Is that correct, Libby?
Well, I just would like to say that the lots that have been finally platted, you see those as the small lots that are divided now. You can see that on this map, for instance. The area in question was never final platted. So that tells me that most likely a plan was not approved. So it has to meet current standards.
Okay.
So we don't have, even in our current code, we really don't have a way to approve and hold a conceptual drawing. You know, people show me here in planning, people show me stuff all the time that never quite comes to fruition like they thought it would.
Right.
And until we have an approved plan and until a final plat is recorded, you know, things are subject to change within the bounds of the code.
Yeah, and we also got to remember that exactly what he's asking for. He's only asking for some smaller lot sizes for townhomes, and townhomes are approved in this area. He can build this project using 40/40 all day long in this area, right? That's correct. That is correct. Yes.
But I mean, is this kind of? I mean, I take it y'all's concern is the traffic. Once again, can't we put this in note number 10? Our stipulations is, hey, we approve it, long as, you know, the traffic study says that this might be a problem. Now, granted, at the same time, the traffic study say instead of having 172 houses, you could only have 100. He might still keep the 16 foot and get rid of some of the individual lots. I mean, he's got to come, if it's a quantity wise as far as traffic, he can manipulate some of the other lots and get rid of them. Or, I mean, you know, I hate to say maybe pass the buck, but until we know the traffic study I mean, I think what he's looking for is before he does the traffic study and spend much more money and time on it, if he can't do 16 foot, he might not do the project. Not that's possible. He might could do 22 foot, but do we put in the stipulations that traffic study will determine and we need to relook at it? Do we need to table it until he gets that study? And there's just a couple of
But
options because
in number 5, one of the issues before we can approve it is traffic. And that, I mean, I think all of us realize there's going to be a lot more traffic there, even with just the houses. Then if he puts in I mean, obviously he's supposed to put in townhomes too. But if you restrict the 16-foot lots to a very minimum, it will reduce some of the traffic because it will reduce the number of units he can put in. But I think the traffic, this is specific to this number 5 is traffic. And I don't think it takes a traffic study for us to realize that it's going to be a lot more traffic there. And I think that's what the residents are very worried about. I do think that maybe we alleviated some of the concern with the residents with the 500 feet away from the greenway issue. I mean, I don't know, that would make me feel better if I lived there. But I think the traffic issue it's in this right here. Does anybody hear me?
Yep, we're thinking in deep thought.
Okay. It says I'm not muted. I just wondered if I was. I'll tell you another thing that concerns me is the fact that some people didn't get their letter until pretty late. Or if they didn't get, like, who was it? Christine Lina said she didn't get one at all. That concerns me legally.
So I can attest to the fact that the planning department followed guidelines within the development code that we follow every time that we do this, and they were mailed out. We can't control exactly how the post office delivers.
Well, I got 2 Christmas cards today. One was mailed December 16th and one was mailed December 18th. So I certainly understand that.
I hope one of them was mine. I am concerned. They have alleviated my concerns about the size of the lots. I think they're willing to work with that, and we can help them there. But I am concerned about what we're going to do with all the cars and traffic. Can't possibly send it down through Norwood. I mean, or over to Pisgah to get over there with that school traffic. I mean, that's just, I don't know what to do about that. And obviously we can't do anything about it, but we could require a study before we approve this.
Well, should we table this until the traffic study's been done? And I know that's probably an expensive thing to have done, but
well, I asked the question earlier, how long will it take to get one done?
Right. I don't know. Do you know, Libby? Do you know, Jason, how long a traffic study takes?
So sometimes it depends on the engineer. I would defer to Jason if he has one that he uses on a regular basis, that he has a better idea.
Probably the quickest we could probably get one would be probably 30 days, I would think. And then there'll probably be some follow-up questions or comments, once we gave that to Libby and probably Tom Caesar would study it. And then probably a lot of times they'll ask for more information from our traffic engineer. So, I mean, the quickest we could get a draft into the city would be probably a month, and then probably to work through any questions or concerns or any details would be probably another 30 days.
So March might be too soon.
Are we looking at 60 days?
Probably, yes, sir.
Well, it's like,
And also,
this is kind of one of the things for Jason to make it, kind of help or guide us on, because if we go down this path and we don't think traffic's right and he thinks a traffic study will help us, if we turn them down, I mean, that's a year. That's a year before you can come back to ask for a new approval or zoning. I mean, we could go on. We can come back to this one, Wes, if you want, and answer the other questions. Let them think about that. So when we do come back, if they do a traffic study, we pretty much got all the other answers. But
yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
We know that we have to do a traffic study. I mean, that's like Libby's mentioned. That's part of the process. And so whatever that traffic study comes back with, we know we have to meet those requirements.
So Wes, at the same time, it has been thrown at, since he is required. I mean, do we go through here and make our recommendations? If we do decide to approve it, make recommendations that, hey, we either revisit this once the traffic study gets in, or, discretion of Libby and the planning commission to, no, you can't have this, or yes, you can have this.
That's we could circle back to this one, and if I am just I would not even be opposed at all that as quick as he got the traffic study, we could within reason, we could hold a special meeting, because we'd have to notify everybody that we're going to hold another meeting. But I am concerned enough about we need to know what the traffic's going to be like.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
yes, go ahead.
So if for whatever reason, if the variance is turned down, or if we never requested the variance on the townhomes, the difference in the lot count is only about a dozen lots total. So if we went back to all single family, or just we went back to 40-foot wide townhomes, we're only talking about a difference of about 12 lots in total, which is probably not a big impact on a traffic study. Whether we had 16-foot lots or all 40-foot wide townhome lots.
I understand that, Jason. What I'm concerned about more than anything else is that you're going to have 170 somethings in there. That's 170 cars or so that's got to leave there every morning and come back every night. Well, how are you going to get the traffic in and out of there?
Right. No, I understand.
That's the part that bothers me. There's no big difference between 20 cars and that doesn't bother me, but it bothers me. Where is all that traffic going to go? I mean, it looks like to me there are 5 ways out of there, but the state either won't let you have them, or there's reasons why you can't use them. But like Cascade Road, I thought that's a perfect spot to take traffic over to Pisgah, but evidently it's too cost prohibitive to do that.
Well, could we table this until he gets a traffic study? And then, like you said, if it's not at a regular meeting time, when it's feasible, when he gets the study, that we could have a special meeting. And I know that's more work on Libby's part, notifying everybody. But if it's denied, then he can't do anything. Like Jim says, he can't come back to us for a year. And I think it would behoove us to table it until we get some definitive answers. Because I tell you, I have a lot of trouble with that number 5.
Well, Jim, what are your thoughts and concerns?
Traffic is an issue. at one time it was already scheduled to be developed. Even if, like I said, it's, slated to be developed for 40-foot lots. I mean, if we tell him no to 16 foot,
And it can be developed in 40-foot lots.
Correct. And you still have the same amount of traffic or very little less. Not want to try to pass the buck, but like I said, the traffic study will help, but he's already got to have a traffic study. He's kind of, like I said, at this same time before he goes, if we turn him down, he can, make his arrangements for the new traffic study or new site plan. Or if we turn him, he has something solid to go to, for the traffic study. There's so many different ways to go. I think we're willing to work with him. And this might also give him a little time to get, a better layout for those each blocks of maybe, well, hell, I really don't need 16 foot. I might, 20 foot. He could play with that a little bit, but at the same time, he's got to get it regardless. For us, he's got to get it for the planning commission.
Okay.
Or if you want, let's go on down to come back and think about this. We can go on and hit number 7, 8, and 9.
Let's do that. Let's circle back.
Because like I said, we might get one of them and it just completely kills it.
Right.
So let's proceed. Come back.
Item number 6, not applicable. That was the signs. Okay. And number 7, really, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance in the effect which would be to allow the establishment of use or not otherwise permitted. That's not happening. B is to extend physically non-conforming use of the land. We're not doing that. And to change the zoning boundary. We're not doing that one. So that one's okay. Number 8. If the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. The applicant states the existing zoning requirements on a minimum lot widths are imposed by the North Augusta Development Code. Well, that's true. Staff notes that the requirements of the minimum lot width are required by the North Augusta Development Code for R7 zoning districts. Well, in this case, number 8 is he, because he wants smaller lots, is he self-imposing this hardship?
Chair, if I may, I
Yes.
believe in this case, the conflict within the development code really creates this issue.
Okay, I can agree with that. It's not self-imposed. It's our development code is imposing it.
So I'm good with that one.
So we're good with that one. Okay.
I'm fine with that one.
Number 9, the fact that the property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. The applicant states the general any project that proceeds from undeveloped land to finished homes is completed for profit. The existing R7 zone already allows townhomes at much higher density than what he's proposed. Staff recognizes that property may be used more properly for development, but is not sole grounds for variance. I think we can find yes for that one, can't we?
Yes.
And yes.
And 10, in granting the variance, the Zoning Board of Appeals may attach such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building structures or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare. The developer says that the full development plans will be designed to meet all other requirements as shown in the development code. The homeowner association for the community will be set up to maintain the landscaping, exteriors, and roofs of the townhome so that individual owners do not. Staff notes that final construction approval of any subdivision is subject to a major subdivision preliminary plat review and approved by the planning commission. Excuse me. All plans submitted will be required to meet all other requirements of the North Augusta Development Code. Staff has concerns that there will not be sufficient connectivity and or access score for the design as shown for both this portion and any future portions. Additional variances or waivers from the Board of Zoning Appeals or Planning Commission may be required as more detailed plans are provided. Excuse me. The board may consider conditions for the project. Conditions should be specific, measurable, and enforceable. All right.
You
so
okay?
what we really got, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if you were okay.
Yeah. My battery's getting low.
Yeah. That's
there's-
bedtime.
All kidding aside, all of a sudden my iPad is showing that it's down to less than 10%. I may have to grab a cord in a minute, but go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that there's a little bit of additional staff commentary on the next page.
Oh, that's right. Do remember that now. Previous projects had conditions regarding limits to density or number of lots allowed with reduced dimensions, conformance to submitted sketches, restrictions to the physical location of these lots, architectural requirements, spacing requirements, and other conditions may be imposed as the board determines. Conditions will apply to the whole of both parcels unless the board indicates otherwise in the conditions. So we need to circle back to 5, I believe, and back to 10.
4 and 3. So we're doing tentative on 4 and 3.
Yeah, let's go back to 3. The conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity.
Well, it depends on what you mean by vicinity.
Well, I think we got hung up on this one is that there was a couple of projects that we didn't have anything to do with.
Right.
Approved 16 foot, and then there was one that we did approve at 26, but we had reasons for that.
When do you look at the whole block as a building, or do you look at the individual lots like this since they're connected townhomes? Because if that's the case, the whole block is roughly, 75, 80 feet wide. If that's what you're concerned, your concern with.
Are we still looking at the 3?
Yeah, I think they fell back to 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're back at 3.
So my reading of this would be that this pertains to the larger property under consideration. Is that there's something different about this property than, maybe some of the other properties around it.
I say yes, and I thought I agree with that.
If that helps.
Yeah, I mean, with all the wetlands and the contours,
I can have a yes on that one.
Okay, I agree with that. Four. Because of the conditions, the application of the charter to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property.
Wes, don't forget to mute one of those because it'll create a loop.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to have to. I'm trying. Good now. I killed the other one. Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. I know we said tentatively yes, but you still can build the townhomes regardless. You can almost still put the same number in there. I think we're okay on that one.
yes, I think that's a yes. We're good to go.
Kathy, you all right?
I was muted. Yes, I'm okay on that one.
All right. So let's go to tack number 5. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, and incompatible late night activity. So now we're back to the traffic problem.
Chair, if I may, I believe I heard some comments about potentially issues with scale as well. Would it be acceptable to the board to perhaps make a condition that they come back for a final site plan approval through the board once we kind of get through the preliminary plat process?
My problem is traffic.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
I just said my problem is traffic. And I think that with smaller townhouses, then he's going to be able to put, I mean, I know it's not a lot more, but that is going to be more traffic. And it's hard to see on this plat or this plan, preliminary concept, I guess, drawing, exactly what it's going to be like. And we don't know where the egresses and all are. We don't know that yet. Now, what does that include? I mean, I know it includes DOT on like 5 Notch Road, but would it include that on Pisgah also, or I don't know about that.
Yeah, so I believe I'd have to look again, but I think we're going to have to look at probably a half-mile radius for the traffic study. So it would be a pretty wide swath of area that we would take into consideration. But my proposal was that if the board is comfortable with it, that we can at least start getting them through the preliminary plat process and not slow them down further on that, while letting staff take a good look at what it is that they're proposing and trying to come up with some solutions for this.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, Libby, but I do have one question, curiosity. So if they do a traffic study and it comes back and it's not that good, can the traffic study tell them, okay, you're going to put 50 houses in there?
That could potentially happen, yes.
All right, so if we, give it to him this way and he's proposing 172, is it even, Mr. Jason, if it's even, favorable for y'all to come in and they tell you, hey, you can only do, 75 houses?
Jim, that's the way, that's what we would expect. That may be the limiting factor on the number of lots that we can put in is what that traffic study comes back and where we need to connect to. Like Kathy, like you mentioned, it's hard to see where the connections are on this plan, and because
It is.
we know we need to have more than one. We just don't know. There's issues on Vireo we need to study, but that traffic study will look at all those issues and come up with the best solution to distribute that traffic out so it's not concentrated.
I live on Vireo Drive, and as a matter of fact, I got a notice about this. We sold that house a long time ago, but anyway, I don't know whether they didn't put the deed over in Aiken or the title or not. But anyway, that particular vacant piece of property that is would be a potential interest and exit for y'all is that is a dangerous place right there. And so I don't think you're gonna get a permit to do that one there. So that would, in my opinion, you wouldn't having lived there for several years, a long time ago, it was an issue, and there's a lot more traffic in town.
Libby, is all those DOT roads?
I'd have to look back. I think there's some that are and some that are not. So
with DOT, they'll kind of tell you, yes, you can enter here. No, you can't enter here. You need to go over here, go there.
Yes, SCDOT would tell that, but we also have, our requirements within the development code. So
right.
We have, site distance, we have, road grade profiles, we have all of that stuff, and that comes through engineering.
All right, let me play devil's advocate a minute. The traffic study comes back, the state says, and I'm gonna make something up. The state says you can only use 100 lots in there. At that point in time, can they decide to put all town in R7?
That would depend on what conditions the board puts on, or
no,
because townhomes are allowed. The issue here is the lot width. So if the board limited how many of whatever size or where townhomes of a certain size went, then they would still be bound by that.
Well, I understand that piece, but I'm playing devil's advocate now. The traffic study comes back, and the state or the city or whoever says that's too many. You can only have half the number of lots. You can only have 100 lots in there. Is all you can have to build on. Could he make that 100 lot townhome project in R7? Or does it have to be mixed use?
So townhomes are allowed. Regardless.
What you're saying.
Okay, so he could conceivably do that.
More cars if you put all townhomes in there.
Not necessarily, because traffic is going to be generated per residential unit generally. So
Yeah.
They limit you to how many units you can have. That's going to be it, unless you take some other measure to divert the traffic or alleviate the traffic issue.
Right.
But the townhomes being allowed, yes, they're allowed. What we're talking about is the actual width of the townhome. You know, it may be that, you know, if I'm kind of following your train of thought, if the board allowed lot sizes down to 16 feet, if they're only allowed 100 of them, they could potentially build 116-foot townhomes, depending on the conditions. There are other things, you know, that you guys could condition on this, but
Right.
just hypothetically.
That was where I was going.
Yeah, they could build
That was where I was going.
116-foot townhomes, but that would be it. They couldn't build anything else if the traffic study prohibited it.
Okay. So then I guess the thing to do is to give them some type of tentative approval with the restriction that they don't get final approval for the variance until the results of a traffic study are in and accepted by the city.
I agree with that, as long with, you know, putting those stipulations like we talked about, you know, no more than 36, 16 footers, no more than 2 16-foot per block of 4. If you have 3, you can only put 1 16-footer in there. You know, I think we still make those stipulations along with final approval based on traffic study. You hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
So would this be coming, let me make sure I understand the condition. Would this be coming back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for final approval of the traffic study? With staff concurrence or?
Well, it's like we can't hear you.
It would come back to us
after the staff.
Or your recommendation on. Can you hear me?
No.
We got background noise. I may have to mute a couple people here. Hang on.
How about now?
Okay. Go ahead.
How about now?
I can hear you.
No, I was saying we give tentative approval. Huh? You still can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jim. But Wesley,
I was saying that we give the we give tentative approval, and after the traffic study is done and the city approves, whether it's the planning commission or the staff approves the traffic plan, then it comes back to us for final approval.
Okay, so I would suggest that we write that as not as a tentative approval, but just as a condition of approval, that after the preliminary plat has gone through the approval process, with the planning commission that a final approval be given by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I second.
Okay.
Well, aren't we gonna put the traffic study in there as a condition also?
You can include that, but it's going to be part of this preliminary plat review regardless.
Okay. All right.
And we're gonna include that, 16 foot lots, no more than 2 per block, no more than 36 total.
No more than 2 per block, 36
Our motion maker's not here.
total. I know. Big notes.
Where's Kevin?
But does that get you to where you need to be on number 5?
Yes, I think so.
I just am worried about it. I'm worried about number 5. I'm worried about the traffic. I really am. And I don't know why we can't we can't table this and let him do a traffic study and then come back. What's the objection of that, Libby?
It just delays the timeline. That's all. Y'all are. I was just trying to find a compromise somewhere in between.
So what you're saying is let him go ahead with the final, well, as much as he can, a final plat. And then, and at the same time, the traffic study is being done. So he has the plat ready for you to look at, or you've already looked at it, and then the traffic study comes in. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the traffic study would come in as part of the preliminary.
Okay.
To even prove that the subdivision can be built. So we're not going to give them approval to move dirt or do anything until we at least have that preliminary plat approval taken care of. And as part of that, we have to look at that traffic study, as well as, stormwater will take care of wetlands and, all of that stuff at the same time.
So even though he turns everything in to you that he needs to turn in and y'all approve it, if the traffic study comes back in the negative, then it's a no-go. Is that correct? Or it has to come back for us for a revision about pertaining to, according to what the traffic study said?
No. If the traffic study means that all of this is a no-go, then it's just a no-go.
Well, I didn't mean that it was, that he could only have so many units or so many cars. I'm still not sure how that works. Do they think
Right.
2 cars per unit? Is that what they're saying?
It's similar to that. So there's a traffic generation rate. So they've, a bunch of traffic engineer people have figured out what kind of the average rate is for homes. And you use that to figure out what's called the level of service on your roads. And that's what we pay them for, because it can get kind of complicated. But so what we're looking at here tonight is going to be your lot width. We're not looking at the total number of lots because that's going to be governed by the density that's already allowed. We're not, that isn't part of this, variance.
No.
So what you guys really have to decide is if you want those narrower lots, where you may want them, how many you may want of each, like Jim was talking about, if you only want a few 16 feet, that whatever. If you're concerned about traffic, we can bring that back to you to take a look at it, for a final sign off, if that's what you want. I can assure you that staff will look at it. It's not something that's just going to be ignored.
I do have one question for Jason. Would it benefit you to get your traffic study, or does it benefit you for us to go ahead and give you some type of approval to wait on your traffic study?
I would like to keep moving forward, Jim, and then, I mean, if we need to come back to the BZA with the traffic study for the final stamp on the preliminary plan, that's fine. I mean, certainly not to argue with y'all, so don't take it this way, but I think there's enough check on the traffic study just to have that. I mean, first off, DOT, whoever owns the roads, are not going to let us overcrowd them without a solution. The city's not going to let us do that. They already require a traffic study as part of just the engineering plans we have to turn in. And if we overburden the streets, then we've got to figure out a solution, there. So basically we would be just bringing that information back to you at the end saying we either satisfied the traffic study by either a reduction in lots, more connections, however it works out, but we've satisfied those. But I mean, I don't mind. I mean, we don't mind certainly bringing it back to y'all to officially to present the results to you, if that suits you.
Wesley, I'm thinking with us, to keep this project moving, it does seem to be a good project. I think we put the stipulations like we talked about, only 36, 16-foot lots, no more than 2 per block. If it's less than 4, no more than, could have 1 in it. So he could go ahead and proceed. I think we do have enough checks and balances. The traffic might dictate the outcome. He might find it.
Let me throw. Go ahead.
I just figured he might find it once he gets his traffic study and tells he needs to cut, 30 houses out. It might be more cost effective for him to build them all at 24 feet and get rid of those 16s. But let's go ahead and set a minimum for him so we can proceed. And then he can bring it back to us if we want, or like I said, have Libby and the Planning Commission do their job.
I don't disagree. I think that's right. I'm just rereading his request. And what does he do with the rest of his lots that we're telling him he can only have 2 at 16? We tell him how many he can have at 20 and how many at 24 and how many at 28?
He can have, to me, he can have as many 24s and 26 and 28s, but he can't go more than 7 per acre. And most of these townhomes,
I understand that piece.
Yeah, so most of these townhomes, they're pretty much built to 30 foot, 25 foot or whatever to sit in a certain, sounds like he's got them set up as 80 foot is what they try to get out of a block. I mean, off our tentative plan, he can't have any more than, 12 blocks?
Yeah. 12 blocks and 7. Yep.
6. Well, it might be more than that. That's 6, 12, 9. 18 blocks.
Right, 18. Yes.
Libby, does that cover the request?
You'll have to explain that one to me again. I'm sorry.
He shows 18 blocks of townhomes, which tentatively looks to be 4 per block. And that would give him his 72 plus or minus here or there. I think if we do, no more than 2 16-foot lots per block. If it's less than 4 per block, he can only have 1. I mean, that's 36 max he can have of 16-foot lots. If he wants to squeeze in, 4 20s along with that 16 or 3 20s, I mean, he's still capable.
And this
But it
would
looks
all,
like according to his plans, he does have a couple of 30, I think, close to a 30-footer or something like that.
yeah, that is shown on, some of these, footprints that the, floor plans that they've given us here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
That's where I'm headed, Wesley. Up to you and Kathy, I guess. But that's my train of thought is, no more than 2 per block.
I just want. Yeah, I'm good with that. I just wanted to make sure we were covering the variance, the request.
And then, like I said, the rest of he's got to go with, no more than 18 blocks is what he's had. And no more than 216 per block. So that kind of, like I said, 36 total. He can't put 3 or 4 16s in a block. He can only put 2. He can put 1 if he wants, or none.
But Libby, what? I'm sorry, Jim.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, what is the minimum? The minimum is 40 feet. Is that what you're saying? That's what the code says?
Yes.
So he doesn't have to, if we says he came for a 16-foot variance. Now, if, as Jim says, he puts 24, 26 feet ones in, that doesn't have to be a variance also?
I would assume that the variance that you would give them would be down to 16. So would allow down to that lowest.
Yeah.
Down to that level. That's correct. Yeah. Give him the widths of down to 16, from 40 down to 16. But you can still have no more than 2 per block.
Correct.
It's 16.
2 16s
right,
per
Jim?
block.
Yeah, no more than 2 16s per block. If he has a 3 block, he can only have 1.
Right. It may be helpful to also include on the conditions that the floor plans would need to be similar to what are shown here. My concern is if you say 16, and this isn't a reflection on Ivy at all, but since this is binding on the property in perpetuity, kind of like Wes was saying, if you take it down to 16 from there, if they only have 2 that are 16, but they have 2 that are 18, is that really meeting the intent of what it is that you're trying to do here? That makes sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, what if we said the 16 and then the rest of them cannot have to be 24 feet or wider?
Would that be acceptable for Ivy?
Yeah.
That works for me.
That would work. Does that get you your 3-bedroom all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we need a motion.
Kevin, where are you? This is gonna be a shorter motion. I'll make the motion. So, Libby, you writing this down? Because I didn't. I don't have the form to go by. I'd like to make the motion that we approve the variance with conditions. Conditions being, and I won't have to say, no more than 2 16-foot lots per block of townhomes, with the others being 24 foot or wider per 4 or more. Anything less than 4, only 1 16-foot's allowed, with the others being 24 or more width-wise. At this time, no more than 36 total 16-foot lots and no more than 18 blocks of condo or townhomes. This is also very depending on traffic study provided by the developer. And Wes, you want us to take a look at it before final approval?
Well, I think we should take a look at it after the planning commission or levy has approved it.
Yep. And we'd like for this planning commission and the planning department to review and approve with the final look-see by the BZA.
I second.
And we'll pledge to you, Mr. Runner, but we'll do that in a call meeting if we have to.
Yes, sir.
We have a
Anything else,
motion
Libby,
and a
I
second.
need to add?
Any other discussion?
Let's just make sure we don't have anything else we need to add, or Libby. Oh, I do need to add. I think that we need to keep this in the same floor plan or design that is currently presented in our documents, in our presentation. Can't hear you, Libby.
Could we amend that to be a similar floor plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Similar floor plans.
Yes.
As
With
submitted.
approval,
With approval.
from planning director?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I've got.
And no, Libby, you can't sneak in.
Whatever
You
I
can't
want.
sneak in there, you're getting a raise. So
Might need one after tonight. So no more than 16-foot lots per block of townhomes, with others being 24 feet or wider, for blocks of 4 or more. If it's a block of less than 4, only 1 16-foot, with others being 24 feet or more. No more than a total of 36 blocks of townhomes.
No.
18.
18 blocks of townhomes.
18 blocks of townhomes. Okay, this is why
No
I
more
asked.
than 36 16-foot lots.
Okay, no more than 36 16-foot lots. Okay. I think that the statement that limiting the blocks of townhomes is not would not be advisable. But I think saying no more than 36 16-foot lots is okay.
Okay. Then scratch that.
Okay.
I would also like to add that future development, if townhomes are in the future development, that it comes back to the board. So that helps them out as well.
Can we say future development will come back to the
BZA.
BZA
If
if
needed.
required
Yes.
by the development code at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 conditions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did I hear a second from Kathy?
Yes.
Yes.
Kathy seconded. Any more discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Kathy, did you say aye?
I did.
Aye. Jim?
Yes. Aye.
Unanimous. Anybody else? Mr. Winiger, thank you for your time. We appreciate the job y'all do in North Augusta.
Thank you.
All right, Libby, you
That
got
it?
anything else for us?
The only thing I would mention to you guys is to please go and take this survey if you have not. This is about the development code, and this is the time to voice your frustrations and whatever you'd like for us to know, especially after this meeting. We will close that on January 10th, and that's Sunday night. So time is limited. So please go take it.
Okay.
All right. I will.
I've already voted 14 times and said y'all need more staff.
Does that mean we get 14 staff?
Yeah.
All right, well, y'all have a good
Anything
evening.
else?
Good night.
I
Adjourned.
I appreciate everybody's time and effort tonight. Thank you so much. Meeting adjourned.